So it was a pretty typical childhood. I had some alcoholism in my family, so I was trying to find my way. So I wound up going in the Navy, shattering 2 vertebrae. I'm just instantly paralyzed, crushed all my organs. I lost everything. Technically you shouldn't be walking, but you're walking. About I have a purpose for you, and it just all clicked.
Hey, this is Greg Clark, and I'm with a good friend of mine, Frank Kelly, and we're part of a group that's called Warriors in Healing. And it's actually Frank is my neighbor, but we've become great friends. We have another guy named Barry Fogarty that's in the group.
We've seen his. We've got his video too.
And our whole job is to kind of get out there and just talk with military vets and family members and be able to kind of help get the story out about not only troubles early on through any type of injuries, but also with trauma, with depression, anxiety, and everything that leads up to. So I'm just thankful that Frank's with me today, and we're here talking at the beautiful Ada Lot Baptist Church in Shawnee.
We're right now we're the Engage Free Medical Clinic. But yeah, I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited to share a little bit.
Let's kind of get into it. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up at?
Yeah, I was born in 1965 in northeastern Ohio, kind of where Appalachia meets the the mob people. It was kind of an eclectic mix of stuff. It was a lot of steel mills and stuff like that. And I lived there until I was 7th grade, which was 77, 78, and then we moved to Oklahoma, where I'm at now. So it was a pretty typical childhood. It was kind of culture shock coming out here from that area, but it was a great adventure. It was a pretty normal childhood. Had some alcoholism in my family, so I had to deal with that, but went to high school here in rural Oklahoma and lived and became a trained welder and did construction. I was sort of, I liked adventure, so I would work as a steel iron worker, putting together beams, so was welding and stuff like that. And pay was good, and till the early to mid 80s when the oil economy collapsed, and I was trying to find my way, so I wound up joining the Navy.
How old were you?
I was 21 years old. So I joined in 1986. Got trained, was in the engineering department, machinist mate, working in the engine room on a guided missile cruiser on the East Coast. Was part of did the med cruises, Mediterranean and stuff.
And that's kind of where your story starts, isn't
it? As far as this part of it goes, I was actually was in the engine room. We had a guy that was a radio man. He wanted to transfer into engineering, so he's kind of shadowing me. We was in dry dock at the time, and he was following me around. And it was probably about 3 o'clock in the morning. Had the late watch, and I remember we were sitting at a table like this having coffee, and he asked me if I had ever thought about Jesus. And one of the things about me growing up, I'd never really been exposed to church too much. And I was a loner. I was like, I took care of myself, didn't need anybody, was happy the way I was, wasn't very good for other people. I mean, I was pretty self-centered. So I was kind of like, nope, thank you, goodbye. And that's where it kind of got remarkable, because just a couple of days later, I was going from my apartment to the ship to work in dry dock, and got involved in a motorcycle accident. Was thrown about 60 feet headfirst into a parked car, and wound up shattering 2 vertebrae. I was instantly paralyzed, crushed all my organs. Moved the car about 4 feet when I hit it, my body.
So you get that diagnosis, you wake up in the hospital room.
About 6 months. I was on drugs and just pretty much comatose.
Looking at that ceiling.
Yeah.
wondering where
Yeah,
where
what
am I going?
yeah,
Am I
what
doing?
happened? Yeah, and what am I going to do? And the shock of it was life changing. Eventually, I was shipped out to the VA Rehabilitation Center in Memphis, and it was sort of a standoff. Of course, everybody I'm sure walks in there saying, "I'm going to walk again. I'm going to do this," but I really felt that way. But um, my body was too unstable, my neck and stuff, so they were hesitant to do physical therapy. And I mean, it's the system too. I mean, it's just the way it is. And so I would refuse to do stuff, and they would refuse to do physical therapy, and we were in standoff for months and months until they finally discharged me for being an uncooperative patient. And and, uh, and I came home to Oklahoma.
So now that is a lot to go through.
Yeah,
That's
it is.
you're trying to figure out, and I think that's where my relationship as a physical therapist comes in. I understand what it's like walking into that room, and that person's life has been changed dramatically. They've had a bad day, and it's not going to be like what it was yesterday.
I lost everything. I mean, I couldn't even control my own bathroom function. Everything was done for me. I had, let alone, and it was sort of the treatment at the time was to load people up on morphine and Valium to lessen spasms and stuff, and so it was just a constant, just sort of laying in bed waiting to die.
Put them in a wheelchair if
Yeah.
they need it, or in the bed.
Yeah.
Let them be. Let them have the medication.
Right.
The inevitable is going
Yeah.
to happen.
Right.
But with you, it was an incomplete quadriplegia.
Right.
Which means there is a little bit of hope. Maybe that will change better. But
yeah, to this day, they don't. I mean, they're like, well, I was just at Mercy Hospital not too long ago, and the physical therapist was like, well, you're technically you shouldn't be walking, but you're walking. So
Mosey's lawn. He's out working on a vehicle, and he's quite an inspiration. So, but that's just Frank. But what he has going on outside of your personal life here at A Lot Baptist Church.
yeah, and that's part of my story. I mean, it's my purpose in life at this point in my life. We started up a free medical clinic about 6 years ago, and we've managed to turn it into something that we're working on getting everything set up statewide, because there's a real, in Oklahoma at this point, there's a real lack of free medical care for working uninsured people, which is who we deal with. So, I mean, we've got the rooms and the pharmacy, and we help working uninsured people that have heart conditions or diabetes and stuff like that. We give them everything for free, and it's all volunteer. So yeah, we're doing our volunteers are doing a lot of work.
So it started here 6 years ago,
in this very spot,
right here.
right here.
But there's also something else that happened right here in this same spot.
Yeah, and that's part of the testimony. I mean, when I came back from Memphis to Oklahoma, I wound up getting married to my wife Jamie in '91, and there was a lot of trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with my life? Because everything that I had done was more physical. And you mean the welding and the working on cars and all that stuff, and I lost it all. And it was like I had to continually, from the beginning, look at my life and think, okay, what am I going to do now? And the fact that I didn't have purpose really affected me. So at a certain point, me and my wife were struggling. I was managing rental property and basically just kind of getting along. So she suggested I come to this church, and I came here, and eventually I found a purpose with God. And I heard a message on Romans chapter 5, and it speaks all about, I have a purpose for you. And it just all clicked. This is where I need to be. And in this very spot, this used to be the pastor's office in the old building. And this is the exact spot where I gave my life to Christ. And then 33 years later, here I am just still sitting here. It's now been expanded to a fellowship hall, but we kept all the little bookshelves and stuff. And I sit back here and I do this is where I run all the free clinic stuff from statewide. So
it started out 6 years ago at Adelot Baptist Church.
mm-hmm.
But with their heart and their direction, it's kind of spread out a little bit more than that.
Yeah, we've taken the lead. The problem was during COVID, a lot of the rural free clinics, they just couldn't survive. They were struggling. So, and we were too. It was like, it's volunteers, and the new technology was too expensive for little places like us. So I completely redesigned the business plan with a couple other people. We came up with a new clinic model where we've got the latest technology. We can open up a clinic for nothing. And we can also connect everybody via the internet. So it's turning out to be really popular. And now we're involved with the State Department of Health, and people are on board, and we're gonna work on us, this little church who's gonna work on connecting everybody statewide as far as the Christian free clinics in the state, and anybody else that wants to be a part of our network. So,
which is upwards of like 20.
Yeah, there's 20 that I know of now. There's probably other ones, but we're also starting new ones. So we're going to cover the state, especially the rural areas is where we're going to focus, and we're going to open up free medical clinics. So those people that are working but need medical care, maybe they need insulin, maybe they need cholesterol medicine or something, they can get that stuff and be able to, so they keep working.
So with the public watching this, how can they help out?
But there's always, we actually do really well. EngageFreeClinic.com. I never, you can find out all about us, and you can find out how you can help. You can give financially. We always need volunteers, and if you're in the medical profession, and we try to keep it. That's our big thing. We try to keep it so it's a pleasure for our medical volunteers too. They enjoy it. Gives them a chance to serve, and we've eliminated a lot of the paperwork and stuff in the way so that they can just help people. That's what we're all about. So.
Incredible mission that they have going on. I'm excited.
We've gave out a little over $1 million worth of medical services, and it's a little rural clinic. I mean, we're a small church up north of Shawnee, and we see 5 and 6 people at a time, once or twice a month, and yeah, it's just incredible. So I'm really impressed. I'm really amazed by what God has done.
So, can we back up a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to your story and the darkness.
Yeah.
After the injury, how dark was that?
Yeah. So I was after I got through the initial course. Initially, when I first got hurt, I was close enough to one of the best trauma centers on the East Coast, Virginia Beach General Hospital. So they took me there instead of the Naval Hospital. And I remember waking up, I was on a rotating bed because I developed infection. My heart quit beating. My lungs were getting clogged up, and every time they'd unclog them, my heart had quit. So, there was a lot of medical problems. And I just remember waking up. I couldn't talk. At that time, I had a trach. So I was trying to figure out what was going on. I was on a lot of heavy medication. They kept me pretty much medically comatose for quite a while. I just remember being on that bed and nurses coming up and saying, "Hey, what's going on?" And it was confusion. It was like a bad dream because I couldn't speak. I just had to lay there. I kept thinking I'll wake up, something's wrong. But it wasn't. And then eventually they told me what happened. And so that shock came in, and then I started processing it, and then wound up in the VA rehab center, and I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, my life's over, and it was really hard. I'm sure there were people to talk to. It was just really hard for me to connect with somebody. Everything. It just was. I just felt alone. Angry. Isolated. It was a real struggle. I'd lost. There wasn't any reason to really live anymore. I was just existing, waiting for that inevitable moment when I die from an infection or something. Because I've had a lot of infections until the last year. I have a lot of kidney infections, usually a couple a month. So it was something I was always struggling with. And it seemed like every time there was a light, just something would come and just snuff it out, and it I, it just it was an impossible thing to deal with. It made me want to stay on the medication, the heavy narcotics, because it made me just forget about what I was dealing with.
You know, with any of the times that I ever had to deal with narcotics or whatever, you just, if you're hurting mentally or physically, you take that medicine hoping you're going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Wake up in a year or two and everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out that
Eventually, I figured out I was in there long enough that I would see a lot of guys were on that till they died. And I was like, if I'm going to figure out what to do, I've got to get off this medicine. And the medical people, the system, there were some great individuals in the VA medical system, but the system was like, you got to stay on this. I was like, no, I just refused to take it. So I had to, after being on that stuff for months and months, I had to go cold turkey. And it was hard. It was just hard. Because I could have got on, they were constantly saying, here, take some. And it just, it was very mentally pushed me to the edge.
So let's step into something a little bit a little embarrassing probably, but you and I kind of have a passion for Graceland.
Yeah, Elvis Presley birthplace. I was in Memphis at the VA Medical Center.
Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit.
Well, and so y'all had to get out for a little bit of activity.
One of the nice things, and there was people that would come in, and there was a couple of people that came in and would visit. And then the VA, the recreational people, they would take us out. They would load us up. We'd get in our electric wheelchairs or manual if he was paraplegic, and we go out and do stuff. And one of the activities we did one time was Graceland. And it was really the first time I'd gotten out, and I was just super excited about it. And so we were out, and everybody kind of gets a little freedom to do what they want. And I'm zipping around on my little electric wheelchair, and I go over to where the front porch is, and one of my I had a bag collection system. When I had to urinate, it would collect it. The tube got twisted up, so I started seeing my pants get bigger and bigger because there was a knot in it, and of course my fingers didn't work at the time, so I'm frantically trying to do everything and anything. There's nobody around, till eventually it burst, and I just all over the front porch of Elvis's house.
On the front porch of Elvis.
Just everywhere. So part of it was funny, but then part of it was just like,
that's humiliating.
Yeah, it's humiliating. I got to go back to the bus, and then it took a couple hours to get back and then get cleaned up, and that was my life. So that I had to deal with that. That was one of the things you had to deal with. Eventually, I got all that stuff back. There's a lot of spinal cord injuries that don't. It's just stuff they have to learn to deal with.
Probably one of the biggest things that I have taken from you is that motivation to continually get better just a little bit each day. And there's going to be some days it's a drawback, right? But so you went from paralyzed, neck down, going through rehab, going through the embarrassments, not knowing where you're at.
And I sort of made that situation my enemy. So when I got discharged to come home, then I lost that. So in a way, it was difficult because, I mean, just like when you're in the service, and especially if you serve or something, and then you come home, you lose a lot. I mean, it's a completely different, you're changed, and you don't have that enemy anymore, and you can find yourself not knowing what to do. That's what happened to me. It's like I can do what I want, and then I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm still kind of using a walker. I spent a little time getting in shape. We can talk about that in a little bit. I got in pretty good shape. I did some rehab on my own, but it was all about purpose. I mean, I still just found myself sitting around a lot.
Not only did he get himself in shape, but what was one of your goals that you checked off?
Well, I couldn't run, so I wanted to find a way to exercise. So I started riding a bike, and like a lot of us in the service do, you get carried away with something. And I wound up doing long distance bike races and bike tours for a while. So I actually did a few 100-mile races and rides. The one that I considered the pinnacle of my riding career was the Hotter Than Hell 100-mile. It was a 100-mile race in 100-degree temperatures in Wichita Falls, Texas. And I did that 3 times. I finished twice, wrecked out once, but I was really into it, and I got in pretty good shape.
And so now you're also doing a YouTube channel on fitness.
Just started. It's everyday therapy. It's for all of us that are struggling with change and trials, and just starting that up. So yeah, I'm excited to get that going, because a lot of times I like to keep things quiet, so I just did stuff. As I get up to 59 and I'm starting to slow down a little bit, I'm starting to dealing with purposes. I'm thinking, there's a need. So I've done it over the years. I've shared with people, and I'm going to do it on YouTube now. I'm going to share some of the tricks and ways and struggles, how to deal with trials and how to pull yourself out, and when you want to change your life a little bit.
Think back on a lot of us that struggle with either physical illnesses, mental illnesses, or whatever, that it would have been so easy to have checked out back in 1990.
Oh yeah.
I mean, literally.
And there was, yeah.
But you stayed the course.
Now, that's being a little gracious. I checked out quite a few times during the way. I mean, I was close. I really struggled with that. So there's been certain people in my life at certain times that I could talk to that made the difference.
But 34 years later, there's clinics that's being developed, all because that one guy kept on looking forward. And so not only did he get through some of his own struggles that he was dealing with, that still throw you some roadblocks. I mean, there are still recent hospitalizations and everything.
Yeah, I just got out of the Mercy Hospital a week ago. The infections have largely went away, but I got one that just creeps up, and I got to go in right away. And I'm usually in for a few days, and then they get it under control. And it's a lot better than it used to be, though. So it's not. Now I'm dealing with old man legs and trying to get in shape again. So we're going to see how that works out.
So now, leading through Adalai, the ability to help 20 different regions of Oklahoma to get free health care. If that doesn't say a lot about a mission and legacy, I don't know what else would.
Well, let's be honest. I'm just a small part of it.
I know.
But I'm the idea guy. I'm the guy that does the paperwork and figures out how to do that part. We all do our small part. So
I think that's a nice. Whenever you're with a team, when everyone comes together and puts little ideas together, I can share with that vision.
And it's been great. My purpose, trying to figure out things that hadn't been done. I mean, I don't know of another quadriplegic that rode the Hotter Than Hell 100 on a regular bike without any adaptive equipment. Now, that's not saying anything either way, but I mean, it's figuring out how to do things. It's a challenge that there are challenges out there, and you just have to look around and find your purpose. And there's always a purpose. I mean, if you don't have purpose, what do you have? You're just back in that hospital bed, or back, being discharged from the military, and you're just floating around. And so that is a big thing for change and for being good. Everybody wants to feel like they have a purpose in life. So
it's been amazing for me to be able to sit back and watch. I'm thankful that you're one of the founders of this group of our thing.
Yeah.
Where we can get out and we can talk and share our story with the kids.
Yeah, and all three of us have great stories, and that's the thing. Everybody's got a story. I mean, everybody's got a good ending. One of the big things that for me was having somebody available that I felt like I was comfortable talking to, and that's not always easy. People are in a hurry. People they're not always interested to the point where you need them, and you need somebody that you can be held accountable to, and all sorts of stuff like that. You need friends, like that.
Usually military guys and gals don't ever find that
They don't.
unless they're hanging out with another military guy.
It's a big thing, which is why I was excited you had the idea for this group, because it gives us a chance to, we can do videos, we can have groups, we can get those things, because there's a lot of veteran suicide, a lot of veterans struggling right now.
22 a day.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we see that in the responder community or in the military community, it all starts with trauma.
Yeah.
And how to be able to get a hold of that trauma, the anxiety and the depression. And I always tell people about the amygdala, or it's the alarm system in your brain for your whole body. That's what gets jacked up or hijacked during PTSD. And so, but the only way to ever get that shut off is to actually see a trauma therapist through.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of Frank and Barry and I's goals are to not only get out and share our story, let you know kind of what we did to kind of get through the battles, but what's out there to where you can get it ahead of the game.
I agree. I think with that, being able to reach out, being able to rediscover your life, because you feel like you lose your life, and people can't understand when I tell them that if I could go back the day before that accident and undo everything, I wouldn't. Not at this point. I like myself the way I am. I wouldn't change a thing. And that sounds sort of weird, because I have trouble walking sometimes and I have struggles and stuff, but the purpose that I have and the ability to be part of a group is bigger than, I mean, it's, we all have our stories. We all have things that we deal with, and those things don't have to be things that trip you up and hold you back. They can actually be a benefit.
It's a chapter in your book.
Yeah.
That will help prepare you for the next chapter.
And that it used to be that everybody looks at a handicapped guy and they're like, oh, and they sort of push you to the side. And I've always had that chip on my shoulder. Now it's a benefit. It's a plus. So that trauma, those things that we go through don't have to be things that destroy us. They can actually be a part of our life that we can use to our benefit. It is possible.
What's something else you'd like to share? You pretty well have covered a lot of things, but is there anything that you would like to get out?
I think for me, and one thing I always like to share, there's a lot that you can do as far as counseling, and those are all great things. I think this spot that we're sitting in, and this story here of struggling for a few years trying to find a purpose, and then sitting in the old sanctuary a couple rooms away and hearing that sermon on Romans chapter 5 and saying, God has a purpose for me. And the cool thing about it is you can look at all this stuff that's been done and know that it's not just me, it's God working. And to see that happen is the ultimate testimony for relationship with God, and having that purpose. And I would suggest strongly that if anybody's meandering, to not just go to church, but to develop that personal relationship with God and the people around you. And it's been a ride. I mean, I've been to the favelas of Brazil as a handicapped person doing mission work. I've been all over doing all sorts of crazy things that I never thought I'd be able to do. A lot of people that aren't handicapped never do. It's just been an adventure that I wouldn't change for the world.
I'm proud of you. Quite a story. So I appreciate you sitting down with us and going over this. And I'll be telling my story here in a couple of weeks, and we're also working on a few other projects. So you'll be hearing more from us.
All right, cut it, Courtney.